come on, I have been trying to get featured for the past 9 videos. I better get this one. These videos are one of the best Reddit comment reviews ever, and I hope this man gets more subs. Hey guys, if you write a nice comment under the latest video, you get the chance to be shown in the next video. In honor of Denver's decriminalization of magic mushrooms, doctors of Reddit, what, if any, is your best story of patients on hallucinogenics? I'm not a doctor, but I was working as a paramedic at a music festival when we got called to a kid tripping on who knows what. The guy had climbed to the top of a portable generator stadium light. So he's 20 feet in the air, on a light pole staring into this blazing midnight sun screaming, "I'm a moth, go into the flame." We had several cops, firefighters and myself standing at the base for 30 minutes discussing how to get him down without killing him or us. The entire time a crowd of people on drugs is surrounding us to see how it all plays out. Do we get a ladder truck and try to coax him down? What if he won't go? Do we spray mace up there? What if he falls? All of a sudden this greasy looking janitor walks up, turns off power to the generator, turns on his flashlight, and aims it at the Mothman. Dude looks at the flashlight on the ground, scambles down and follows it to the medical rent like a puppy about to get a snack. I'm embarrassed that none of us thought about that. I had a guy who was freaking out thinking he was going to die because he thought he had eaten too many hallucinogenic mushrooms. He went online and saw that sometimes patients are given activated charcoal to soak up the mushrooms in the stomach. Not entirely true BTW. So he goes outside and starts chowing down on charcoal briquettes that he has in his garage for grilling. After about a dozen he realizes, holy saint, I'm eating charcoal briquettes. Now he is really freaking out, so he grabs his dog, Asla thinks he is never coming back to his house, and drives himself to the addition. He parks out front, walks into Tridge with the pup, black charcoal all over his face and hands, and says, I need a doctor and someone to watch my dog when I die. I'm an anesthetist at a major hospital in Georgia. During a C-section the epidural seemed to not fully be working, and the patient was feeling pain, so we were forced to give ketamine. Ketamine has many effects, and one of which is profound pain blocking, analgesia. It's safe to use in this case, because it won't stop the baby from breathing like morphine or fentanyl would. Ketamine also causes hallucinations, like severe hallucinations. Patient stopped screaming from pain and began screaming from the dragons. O Street. O Street. AHHH. Get them away, while being totally pain-free and comfortable. It was not in a terrified way, but more of an excited I can't believe it kind of way. When the baby came out and began crying it turned to what in the FK is that? Oh my god. That lasted a solid 20 minutes. Edit. Thanks for the gold. First gold coin ever. I'm a doctor, but I've never seen a patient come in on hallucinogens. But outside of work my favorite was a Russian guy in a hostel in Amsterdam who forgot how to speak for 8 hours, but could barely write English, so it was like a really long game of Pictionary for the poor fella. I had a patient who had taken an ungodly amount of Benadryl in a failed suicide attempt. A lot of people think that, since it makes you drowsy, a bunch of it might be able to kill them in their sleep. Instead of killing them though, Benadryl basically gives you absolutely terrifying hallucinations for like 24 hours or more, and then leaves you with the worst multi-day hangover you have ever had in your life. He would not stop yelling and screaming about that damn cat poking its head out of the ceiling tiles every single time I left the room. He also had short bursts of thinking he was covered in bugs and I would find him stripped naked and yelling into the wall. Had a woman come into the ED after ingesting some PCP. She was convinced she was dead and kept telling me she didn't get her last rites. At one point she stripped off all her clothes and shat the bed. Also mistook me for Jesus at one point. She was freaking out for nearly 24 hours. Was working night shift on inpatient service. Ed called to admit someone. We've got a 17-year-old down here with altered mental status. We think he needs to be admitted for eval/monitoring, VSS, chemical fine, etc. Now, I'm not a pediatrician. I don't do kids. I don't understand why the Ed is calling me. But, I'm an intern and it's 2 in the morning so arguing about it is stupid. I headed to the addition. I get there to see a young dude sitting there with his parents. I'll mention that his dad was a full bird colonel and very much fit the archetype, and his mom seemed to fit that type of personality too. The kid is literally rolling around in his bed, alternating between crying, asking if he was going to die, rubbing his dad's hand, and telling him how much he loved him. I had to sit there and take a history with a straight face from a 17-year-old who kept being distracted by just how much he loved his dad. I think my first question was, "Did you take anything tonight?" And he was straight up and said, "Oh, yeah, like a street ton of acid. Want any?" I 100% laughed at this statement. His dad was not amused. The patient was discharged the next morning. I'm a doctor. Not a great story, but I had a kid come into ed after taking some mushrooms at a bush doof and then feeling weird. We told him it was probably the drugs that he took. It hadn't occurred to him they might be linked. In my town though, the great majority of drug related presentations are from meth, and they aren't pretty. We get meth-induced heart attacks, meth-induced seizures, meth-induced motor vehicle accidents, meth-induced sexual violence, and my personal favorite, meth-induced Hillary, where a patient is being in the community and the police can't take them to the watch house, so they come to hospital instead. I've been spat on, punched, kicked, and called every name under the sun by meth-influenced patients. I've seen tiny psychotic women requiring 4 security guards and 4 police officers to restrain so that we can sedate them for their own safety. Meth is not good, kids. Edit, a bush doof is like a rave in the bush. Sorry for the confusion. First person to comment. This thread will turn into not a doctor, but I guarantee it. Fun fact, in the UK magic mushrooms are classed as a class A drug for some reason, which is the same category as heroin and crack cocaine. Had a friend become impatient with mushrooms once. He took an eighth, and an hour later decided they weren't very strong, so the most logical thing to do would be eat his other eighth. Cut to 2 hours later, and he is parked on top of a parking garage. Tried to drive across town when they kicked in, and he immediately realized his up. He tried to wait it out, but after being abandoned by everyone else, I wasn't around. No way in hell would I have left the poor guy on 7 grams of shrooms to his own devices, and he decides he needs help. So he calls 911. While on the phone he wants to be as honest as possible, so he tells them about his .22 caliber rifle behind the seat of his truck. Only it comes out as, "There's a gun in the car." He says he was tripping and sweating so badly, it was July. The next thing he remembers is hearing a tink 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 and looking up to being surrounded by police, guns drawn and ready for anything. Friend isn't a danger though, so they get him in an ambulance and give him charcoal to induce vomiting. The rest of the night is a blur for him, and he wakes up cuffed to the bed. They ask him if there's anyone he can call for a ride, and he tells them his mom is a nurse who works on the 2nd floor. Apparently while tripping he kept telling them to go upstairs and get mom, so they all have a chuckle realizing his mom really was upstairs. As a nurse, patient came in running in the air asking for a blood transfusion cause he believed that vampire bit his neck. Patient has no any visible marks or scars. Held him down for a while and asked him to calm down. He was so frightened that he asked for garlic to keep the vampires away. Eventually he calmed down and walked out on his own with no problem. Hope that you're reading this. I wanna take what you're taking. When I was a medical student, I saw a guy high as balls on PCP. I was working with a tiny little Asian chick who was a PGY3 resident, and when we walked in the room, this giant naked white dude high as hell sees her and screams that she was the devil or something. Guy lunges at her, and the cop in the room promptly slams him onto the bed. I try to help like any med student working in the field they wanna match in, and I swing around behind the guy, who's actively winning the MMA match with the cop, and grabbed him into a chokehold. Excellent bedside manner was a comment I got on my slip that day. I pin him for a femtosecond before he realizes he's crispy as that good old phencyclidine, and he springs his upper body forward, swinging me over the back of the bed seat right onto his lap. It took me like 5 seconds to realize what happened. I noped right out of there right before the police tased him into oblivion. Hours later he was asking us rather politely for some orange juice with all 4 limbs restrained.